Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Man Cave, holding the auction mandolin, the Larrivee J10 that we fixed up. You know, on camera, that shows up better than it does right here. When you're, well, you can see it pretty good, but it seems to show up more on camera than it even shows up. Like, I noticed when it was sitting over here, I just had it leaning up against the couch. I was looking at it going, boy, you can barely even see that little crack, you know. So it depends on where you're looking at it at, I guess. The price on it right now is up to, well, let me rephrase that. When the last I looked, about 30 minutes ago, the price was $800 on the auction. Got a great sound, easy to play. The sustain is killer. It's got a really nice sound. Sarah married John, 64. In that same year he marched off to war, leaving Sarah in the valley all alone. But that would change soon after he had gone. She washed the baby's clothes in the nearby spring. It was there she lost her precious wedding ring. And feeling more alone, she longed for his return. The nights were long as her heart would yearn. And then 160 years pass into view, when her precious wedding band was found anew, just as if her soul were there for all to see. Sarah, John, and their baby. The war raged on as Sarah made her way. The baby grew more like John every day. She prayed that one day soon the war would end, and she'd see John coming round the bend. Despite the odds, John made his way home. Though weak and sick, Sarah would hang on, till their baby's daddy held him to his breast, allowing Sarah to find eternal rest. And then 160 years pass into view, when her precious wedding band was found anew, just as if her soul were there for all to see. Sarah, John, and their baby. Sarah, John, and their baby. And for the new people, that's a song I wrote about this big valley we live in. And up in the valley, about a half-mile back, there were two houses on the farm that no one really knew about anymore. Bulldozers came through in the 40s and made terraces on both sides for erosion and pretty much erased all trace of these houses and smeared everything everywhere, I guess. And I've been metal detecting back there for the last couple of years and have found all kinds of things. I found two wedding bands and one actual engagement ring. It did not have the stone in it. I found little traces of children's toys, a handmade clay marble. I found some coinage type things, and found a lot of Civil War relics. And therefore, that's why I wrote that song. It kind of incorporates a lot of that stuff. It let me know that there had to be, a baby involved or a child involved at least, and there had to be the Civil War involved. And anyway, it was just interesting, and finding the wedding rings and stuff. So I called that song "The Wedding Band." Anyway, that's the name of that tune, and here's the name of this tune. Get your bid in on this thing. It's a nice guitar. You will not be sad if you end up with owning this. It's a nice guitar. Just a nice guitar. And if you don't know where the bidding goes on, it's on my website, www.rosastringworks.com. And then you just go on the shopping page, and it's at the bottom of the shopping page. And the camera decided it didn't want to focus. It's focusing now again. I don't have a big program for you today. I just have a few little things. Sue and I did take our 2-hour drive down to Winona, Missouri, and we joined about, I don't know, probably 50 other people, maybe more than that. There might have even been close to that many cars, actually. Anyway, there was a bunch of people pulled in at the little gas station down there at 19 and 60, I think it's the other highway, and there's a Subway there, so Sue and I went in, ate lunch at Subway, and walked outside the door and stood at our car and watched the eclipse. It's about how it happened. And I tried to take video and tried to take photos and different things, and nothing turned out worth a darn, so I just said forget that. There's plenty of that out there, I'm sure, that you can see. But anyway, it was really cool. It was really cool to see it, and it was a perfect it was a perfect covering, the perfect corona around it, everything. It was as close to perfect as you could get, I guess, and see the thing. And anyway, on the way back, by the way, one of my purposes for going down there was to stop into Winona and just see if I could recognize anything. And it's not at all like I thought it would look. Not at all. So I doubt I have any childhood memories of that place. But then again, I don't know exactly where my grandpa lived. If I was at that spot, maybe I would recognize something. I don't know. But anyway, it was a little bit of a bummer, let down on that part. But it was a good place to see the eclipse. On the way back, we made a kind of a detour back. Well, actually, it was just about the same distance. And we went through Alice Springs, and I stopped in and took a very short little video clip of that just so you could see it. I love springs and water and all this, and this is just beautiful. Alice Spring is a huge spring. You saw on the sign there, 81 million gallons a day or something like that. Now, Blue Spring, where my mother lived and my grandfather lived, and I wrote the song Grandpa's Old Fiddle, and it incorporates Blue Spring into that song. Blue Spring is, I forgot the daily output, but I'm thinking it's real close to the same thing. In fact, it might be more. I was thinking it was actually like 90 some million gallons. Blue Spring is really a big spring also. It's the 8th largest spring in Missouri. And it looks kind of similar. In one way, it looks smaller because like the big pool is smaller at Blue Spring, but the pool is blue as it can be, man. I mean, it is really blue and cold, cold, cold water coming out of Blue Spring. It's the coldest water, natural water I've ever felt, you know. If you go there on a really, really hot day, as you're coming down the valley, walking toward Blue Spring, you can start to feel it. It feels like air conditioning. So it would have been a cool place to live in the hot summer because it would have been a lot cooler than the surrounding areas, you know. Really cool. But anyway, Alice Spring is not far from Blue Spring. So if you're ever down in that part of part of Missouri, down around Eminence, Missouri, Eminence is kind of between the two springs, I guess you could say roughly there. Anyway, let's see. What else? Well, today my plans are, it looks like it's been raining here. Well, it definitely has been raining here overnight. and looks kind of dreary and nasty looking out there today, so it's a perfect day for me to work on my taxes, and I'm going to get that program loaded and get started, and I hope I can just get it done today and get it over with. Don't know if that'll happen or not, but I'm going to give it a shot. If that would happen and I get done quick enough, well, then I'll probably fix my phone also, because I'm a little leery about tearing into that again, because it's quite a process to tear that phone apart and put that new screen in. And then I just hope it works, because it might not work. Don't know. And I spent a lot of money to test it, so we'll see. I was noticing a lot of comments. A lot of them pertain to the timing of this video coming live, and people said they click on it the instant that they see it, and there's already several people on. And so they wonder if, if the timing is different. Well, I'm sure it probably is. I'm sure there's almost no doubt that it is different from one place to another, for lots of reasons. Servers and all kinds of things take different amounts of time to post things, depending on the activity, all kinds of things like that. So there's a lot of reasons why it would be different. One of the comments I saw before we went live, and then we'll go through these individually here in a minute, but one of the other comments I saw that I thought I could address, and because I do have quite a bit of knowledge about computers and things, is that one person said that their television or whatever, one device was a different place in the video than, like, say, their tablet was. And that's the way it is with me most of the time too. I'll be watching it on my big screen TV, and it'll be ahead or behind my tablet, either way, possibly. And I noticed this last time when I take and drag the bar to the like if I can tell the TV's ahead, well, then I'll drag the tablet bar to the end, and sure enough, it catches up, and it's within a second or so. So you can catch them up, or at least I could. It did work. So just thought I'd mention that in case anybody cares. Let's see, Rod Wentler. I noticed Rod came on almost the moment I posted the thing this morning. I saw him, he was on there almost instantly. So Rod has one of those quick servers, it must be. And then Eddie Turner and Brian Byler and Carolyn Fike and Jeff Buris and Dottie Hillebrandt and Chuck Heidbreder, Timothy Werbo. A lot of familiar names. Carolyn Fike says, funny thing, when I click on the mandolin, the second it shows up, there are already 3 or 4 people. Yep, that's what we were talking about. So, and Carolyn says, maybe it's got something to do with premium YouTube, or who knows. I don't have it. Well, I honestly think it's probably more of just kind of a natural thing. Meaning that, just depends on the server you're on. It depends on how quick that server got notified of the video and all those kinds of things. There's a million links that I can't even imagine. I mean, there's a million links between this computer here and all the computers of the world and all the servers and things. I can't even imagine how it works as good as it does. It just floors me that they can do what they're doing with this stuff these days. It floors me. Okay, moving on down. Let's see if we have any questions about anything else. Bill Rhodes is saying good morning from Warrenton. Marmerge is good morning to all. We all know how much you love hide glue, but other than its lack of reliability, do you think it has any sonic value? Does tight bond tend to creep? Well, let me explain to you, both of those things that you're pointing to are myths. They are absolute 100%, I didn't say 99.9, I said 100% myths. The old timers have passed those things down forever, and they continue to pass them down. And I have heard them from the old timers myself firsthand. This is not hearsay. I'm telling you for sure. Like, I would go to some of these really world-renowned luthiers in the St. Louis area. There's a whole family of them, and I can't think of their name right now. But anyway, they were very well known and very well respected and worked on $1 million instruments. In fact, one of the guys stole like a $5 or $6 million violin and went to China or Japan or someplace, and they finally caught up with him and arrested him. But anyway, the point is, those people were perpetuating those exact rumors that hide glue has a much better sound. Hide glue, it doesn't give, it doesn't creep. The other glues creep. Well, let me just explain it to you in black and white terms. Because when they said those things to me, I'm going, it don't sound right. It don't sound right. I mean, it didn't sound right to me when they said it then, and that was when I was a newbie. And, and then now I got 40 years experience, and I know it ain't right. Let's just put it in black and white terms. Now, if you can't understand these terms, I can't help you. I have glued thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of joints with Titebond. And as far as I know, and I don't know everything, but as far as I know, I've never had one single, not any, failures. Zero, none. I've glued 5 or 6 things with hide glue. All of them have failed. I don't have to say anything else. If that doesn't make any sense to you, I don't know how to help you. There you go. Moving on down. Let's see. James Kopp, morning from San Leon, Texas. I picked up a new puppy. And her name is Blue Lacy. She is Texas Blue Lacy. Yeah, I think I saw a little clip or a video, or not a video, but a little picture you sent in. She is a cute little pup. Let's see. Moving on down. Looking for the question marks primarily. Dottie Hildebrandt, what kind of puppy is that? A blue heeler? Well, I don't know what she was either, honestly, so I'll let him answer that in the comments there. Moving on down. I know I didn't catch all the conversation, but it looked like someone's parents were having problems, and I really feel sorry for you there, because I know it's tough to have to be that kind of a caretaker. Michael Peters, Jerry, I have a saddle that just falls out when you take the strings off. Does this affect the intonation or anything else? Well, that would not pass my standards. I want the saddle to fit in there like it grew in that slot. And like, in other words, if you pick up the saddle, you can almost, if not even possibly, pick up the guitar with it. So if it doesn't fit that snug, it's not right. And I'll tell you where your problem is. It doesn't affect it does affect the sound too, in my opinion, because anything that's not solid degrades sound a little bit. A little bit. I'm not saying a dog could hear it, but it does do that. So, but where this is more of a problem, it's not so much the sound, it's because it's going to break your guitar, believe it or not. Whenever those saddles are in there loose, they start to pull like this. And over time, as you keep, tuning and tightening, they pull more, and they pull more, and they pull more. And eventually, and I'm not saying in every case, but it can definitely do this, because I've seen it gazillions of times, where it'll, in fact, this guitar was probably one of them. And more than likely, that was the reason this guitar, the bridge broke right across the holes here. And it's probably because the saddle that was in here probably wasn't fitting real well, because they had a whole bunch of shims under it. And that allowed that saddle to keep pulling forward, and it acts like a lever, and it busts your bridge. So you want it to fit nice. You just want it to fit nice. You want it snug, so if it were me, I'd make a new saddle and put it in there and make it fit nice. And that's where the calipers I was talking about yesterday come in. You can't make them fit nice without a set of calipers. I mean, you can. You can keep doing trial and error and trial and error and trial and error. But if you can measure the slot and measure the piece, you get a lot closer a whole lot faster. And then the last little bit is still trial and error. But I'm talking, I want them to fit within 1/1000th of an inch. You know what I'm saying? I don't want when I put it in there, I don't want to be able to move it. If I can move it, it ain't right. Period. That's just by my standards. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody's standards, but that's my standard. So there you go. So to me, it's not so much the sound, it's the fact that it'll actually break your instrument. Moving on down. Well, it scrolled on me, I think. Gee whiz. It's really hard to keep, especially when you don't read well. It's really hard to find your place again. Dottie's still praying for my hands. Thank you, Dottie. I'm sure hoping everything's well with you, too. Gary Cooper, sending water wheel fuel your direction. Yeah. Wait, by the way, I was going to say, on that Alley Spring video clip that I showed you there, you saw how much water is rushing out through that little hole. First of all, wouldn't you just like to be there when they built that to see how they did that? Because, they didn't have a bobcat, they didn't have a skid steer, they didn't have an excavator when they built that. They had maybe a team of mules at best, and a bunch of shovels, and a bunch of guys maybe. And can you imagine somehow diverting that water and controlling it and then re-diverting it and all that stuff, doing that all by hand? Oh my gosh. That just, especially with that much power, there's a lot of power in water. I mean, it don't take a very big water stream to be really powerful and knock you off your feet. And for sure, that would knock you off your feet as much as coming through there. You can't walk in that. I mean, it'd just knock you down, no question about it. And so what I was actually going to say about that is that with that much water coming through that little channel, that's the place where you could put an undershot water wheel real easy, and it would be no problem at all. When you only have a trickle like I have, you can't really make a easy undershot water wheel. Now you can make a backshot water wheel so it's falling on the back of the wheel and kind of turning backwards, if you will. You could do that, and that's what I might end up having to do because I may not have any other option, but I think I've got it figured out where I can make it overshot. I want mine to be overshot and drop down because it just looks cool. But anyway, I just thought that was an interesting observation about that mill. I mean, just how did they do that? Golly, that would have been tough. That would have been tough. I wonder how many months it would have taken them to do all that. You wouldn't do that in a couple days. I guarantee you that's going to take you a long time, especially doing it by hand. Man, that was those people, that's when men were men. They really had to work hard to do that. I would have loved to have seen how they did it. Let's see. Freeze. The guitar sounds great. Looks like the Purple Heart bridge is transmitting sound really well. Yeah, it's... there ain't nothing wrong with that guitar. I'm telling you, sound-wise, you won't find one. You can always find something better, but man, you'd be looking for a long time to find a better guitar than that guitar right there. It's a nice guitar. Really nice guitar. Let's see. Moving on down. Oh, it did it again. I just never know how far it goes. Okay. Bill Webb, are you going to make a video of you doing your taxes? Bet that would be fun to watch. You smart aleck. Next time you come here, I'm going to make you help me do something like that. Daddy Hildebrandt, nice job on the video for the guitar. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a tough video to put out. God, it probably took me 5 to 6 hours to do all the work on that guitar. I mean, if you just ran it end to end, 5-6 solid hours, which doesn't sound like that much, but it's a lot of work because 5-6 hours solid on something is a lot. And of course, that was all done in broken up segments. The video footage was 4.5 hours of rough video footage. And it took me every bit of, 18, 20 hours to produce that video. And then another couple hours to get it to work. And those of you who are really stick with it and watched it to the very bitter end, you'll notice at the very bitter end, there was still about I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 seconds that the video froze right at the very end. And I said, that's good enough. I just put it out. I was tired of dealing with it after all the trouble I went through to get that video out. Cup Cool. Darn those old hurting hands of yours. Watching you work on the instruments is relaxing and amazing. Really miss it. But for sure, what you do now kicks arse too. Thank you. Chip Wood, didn't hear if the guitar has a case or not. Yeah, that was in the video at the very end, actually. So you're one that didn't go to the end. But yeah, I showed the case in the video. And it's a Larrivee case. It's a 5-latch case. And it's got real nice velvet looking stuff on the inside. Can you see it? It's really nice. But it's a 5-latch case. So that's usually a sign of a quality case also. You know, some guitar cases only have 3 latches. Some only have 4. This one's got 5. So it's a real high quality case as well. Ulysses Hale, Jerry, look into Burnside rifle for clues to your bullet. What size is the brass diameter? It's about 30 caliber, so about 300 thousandths of an inch. So about 30 caliber is what it is. And that's give or take a couple thousandths. But I did, by the way, I'm glad you brought it up, because I did look yesterday, I looked under exploding bullets for the Civil War. I didn't find anything that even slightly resembles this. The exploding bullets that I found were all large caliber bullets that were somehow packed with gunpowder in the back or something. I don't know how I didn't really get into it because they didn't look like this, but they were quite different than this. Again, you know, what's going to be really sad is when I find out this is not even a bullet. I mean, it might not even be a bullet for all I know. But it looks like a bullet. I don't see how it could be anything else. But I just don't know what it is, period. I mean, but it's definitely old. With that white on that lead, it's old. It's at least 100 years old. And I would say older than that even. But I don't know. Just don't really know. Burnside rifle. I'll look into that. I've heard of Burnside, and I've probably seen it looking through stuff. I've been looking through all the different bullets I've looked up. I'm sure I've run across that, but I don't think anything looks like this so far. I mean, I really don't. I haven't seen anything that even resembles it at all so far. Michael Peters says, the saddle's not noticeably loose, but not tight. I will get it fixed. If I were you, I'd fix it, because if it falls out, it's loose. Period. It should not fall out. You could take any guitar I've ever set a saddle in. You could turn it upside down, shake it like this for 10 minutes, and that saddle ain't going to fall out. I guarantee you. It ain't going to happen. Let's see. James Kopp, Blue Lacy is the Texas state dog. Good ears. Specifically, your dog is this Texas. Anyway, moving on down. Chipwood, you don't have to read this. I ordered the free plans for the Sanders and accidentally ordered 2, but only would need 1 set of the plans. Okay, well, if you're looking for a refund, I can give you that. Just send me an email, and I will get to it eventually. Don't hold your breath. I just have a lot on the plate. Oh, my gosh. Jeff Puris, I believe you put new strings on the auction Taylor. Do you remember what they are? That guitar is incredible. 2 pros have played it and their eyes bug out. Yeah, Jeff bought the Taylor classical guitar. Yeah, it's a great guitar. I don't lie to you about these things. These are good stuff. You know, if I tell you it's good, it's good. That's good. Period. You can take it to the bank. It's a good guitar. It was I'm pretty sure, but not positive, and it was, I believe, a Diodario light classical strings, but it might not have even been Diodario. But it was a light tension, I know that. Honestly, I just don't know, because I hardly ever mess with classical, and I just, I looked up there and there was one that was heavy tension, which I definitely did not want. And there was another one that had light tension. I didn't have a medium. Typically, I would put medium tension on a classical guitar, but I put light. So that's all I know. Sorry. Bill Webb, me doing taxes? You really are itching to go to jail. I'd be better at cutting wood or digging ditches. Yeah, well, we'll fix you up when you come here the next time. Well, actually, it probably won't be me. It'll be Sue. You know how Sue is. If you even say, "Is there something I can help you with?" I guarantee you, she's going to hand you a shovel or something. You don't ask Sue that. Now, me, I'll say, no, thanks. You don't have to help. But not Sue. If you ask Sue, you're going to get a shovel in your hand. So those of you who might be coming here to stay at the rental retreat, don't ever ask Sue if there's anything you can help her with, because you'll be helping. Let's see. Gary Hayden, did you notice a significant temperature drop during the eclipse? Yeah, we did notice it cooled just lightly. It didn't, maybe a couple degrees, I don't know, but it definitely cooled. You could feel it. You could definitely feel it. Paul Akers, have you ever routed a binding slot after the finish was applied? Do you think it can be done without chipping lacquer very bad? Going to try it. Yeah, it can be done, and I have done it, and the results are going to vary on whether the finish chips or not. It's going to vary for a bunch of reasons. It's going to depend on what kind of finish. It's going to depend on the cutter you're using. It's going to depend on, the RPMs. Everything about it is variable. And can I recommend anything? Not really. I would say trial and error, and start in a place that you don't see as much as you might if you started somewhere else. That's the best I can tell you. Good luck to you, but yeah, you can do it. I've done it, but it's not necessarily the simple thing to do. The only other thing I might recommend is, since you're talking an instrument that's already got a finish on it, and I would recommend that on the bottom of your router that you put some of that, I think it's called Teflon tape. I'm not sure that's right. They have a type of tape that's kind of a slick finish that you can put on there, and that'll keep the router from scratching your surface of your instrument. So you might want to do that. You'd have to probably order that off of Amazon or something. Jeff Klein, so have you ever worked on a con guitar? And I'm pretty sure, but do I remember anything about it? Not really. But I remember the name, or seen that name, so I probably worked on them. And I don't really have any thoughts on it, unfortunately, sorry. They all run together. I'm not lying to you. I barely care what the guitar says, or what the model. I barely ever care. So many people, especially in my early days of posting videos, because I would say stuff like that. And people say, well, how do you know how to work on it if you don't know what kind it is? And, they would just ring me out, man. Like, you're some kind of idiot. If you don't know the model number and you don't know this and that, how do you know how to do? I'm going, well, who gives a rip? Who flat gives a rip? All I care about is fixing the problem. And that's the way a mechanic is. The mechanic, I mean, he probably has to know the model to go get the parts, but other than that, he doesn't give a rip what model it is he's working on. He's just putting the parts on, and fixing it. That's the way it is when you're fixing instruments, and they all run together. They just run together. It's a blur. I mean, like, it really is. It's as close to an assembly line as you could get without being an assembly line. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just one after another, after another, after another. And so I have no opinions on almost any guitar, really. That's the truth. It's sad, but it's true. Theron Corbett, how many poor-sounding high-end guitars have you saved for disappointed owners with a proper setup? Well, I don't know, but a lot. I've had lots of people come in with the myths, they'll bring me like a Martin guitar and say, well, we know that you can't really set these up to play well, but, and they'll start off like that. But could you help it out a little bit? I'm going, well, there's no reason it can't be set up to play well. That's the first myth. It's just a myth. I don't care who you are, what you know. It's a myth. That Martins can't play well. They can play. They got a nut, they got frets, and they got a saddle. Every guitar has that. What's the difference? So Martins are no different than any other guitar. They can all play well. But I've had that, myth perpetuated so many times. You wouldn't believe how many times people have said stuff like that to me about, like, say, a Martin guitar or some other brand of guitar or something. And I go, well, there's no reason why that can't work. But yeah, what you're saying, though, is I've turned people's attitudes around a lot on a lot of things when they bring them here. I've had people, more than once, like dozens of times, have them just have tears start streaming down their eyes, down their cheeks, because they can't believe that it's that whatever is now working properly, or it plays right now, or, like the old DJ Ray Hicks, that I took over his show after he passed away. But one of the things I remember about him was when he gave me the guitar, he says, well, this guitar here, you can't play an F chord on this guitar because it just, it never does work right, and, all this. And so when I gave it back to him, every single time I saw him for the next several years, every single time, he would talk about, man, I can play an F chord on my guitar now. Thank you so much, that kind of thing. And so it's happened a lot where I've helped, people get over some kind of issue that they had with their setup or whatever, and whether they were high-end guitars or not, But most everything, there's so much hype attached to music. I'm not lying to you. It's just everywhere and every facet. And 99.9% of it, if you just throw all that hype away and just boil down to common sense, that's all that amounts to. Just like the glue stuff. It's just plain hype and just plain wrong. Clyde Price, if you missed the eclipse, you can view another one in 2044. Okay, I'm going to hold my breath. I can't wait. Joey Dano Guitars. Jerry, do you use standard tuning on your mandolin? Yeah, and I can barely play it in standard, let alone any other fancy tuning. Yes, I do. I did have one mandolin for a while set up to play Get Up John, and I think the way Bill Monroe played it, I'm going back a long time in my memory, and I don't remember the details, but I think the way he played it, he had every single string, all of the 8 strings tuned to a different note. And I didn't think I could play the mandolin that way, but once I started monkeying with it, I was able to play Get Up John, and for a long time we did that on stage, but that was a long time ago, and I totally, completely, 100% forgot anything about that, other than I did it. But yeah, I just use standard tuning, and like I said, I'm lucky to even be able to play that. Cup of Cool, your saddles don't fall out because secretly off camera you wash it with canal water and then glue it in with high glue. Come clean. Yep. Yeah, that's you nailed me. No, I just keep fitting them until they fit perfect. And I don't mean just side to side or depth or end to end. I mean all of those, every single one of those things has to fit perfect. They have to fit perfect end to end. They have to fit perfect to the depth. Like you can put a saddle in there a lot of times and they don't go all the way down. And, you know, you need to check that. And you saw me check it in the video where I draw a line across there. I push it down and then I measure it and I measure the depth of the slot. And if they don't match, it ain't right. And, you know, and the reason when I cut those, like you, I can't emphasize enough that in machining, when you learn how to be a machinist, and I'm not an expert, but you know, I know enough to be dangerous. When you start doing machining, thousandths matter. And like every time you make a pass going deeper with that router in that wood, you leave shelves, and you know they're microscopic. If you felt them, you would go, "Oh, that's smooth enough," but they're not. And when you make something fit as perfect as I make that fit, that 1/1000th of an inch shelf sticking out goes bing, and it stops right there. It doesn't go past that 1/1000th of an inch shelf. And so you have, that's why I take that knife and I go in there and I smooth that out. And I smooth those little shelves out. And you can't avoid those shelves. I mean, I don't care who you are or what you think you know, you can't avoid them. They're going to be there because 1/1000th of an inch is a whisper. I mean, you can't really measure it unless you have precision tools to measure it with. That's just the way it is. I'm just trying to explain that it's not, you know, the video sort of broad brushes some of this stuff. But when you get right down to the brass tacks, it's that close. It's that close. Bill Rhodes says, I doubt if it was tough on. No, you know, I've lost the context on that. I don't know what you're talking about there. Sorry. Let's see. Jeff Klein. So did you go to school in the beginning or self-taught? I'm totally self-taught. I went to a few of these, you know, reputable luthiers, 2 or 3 actually. And then some others that weren't known, you know, just local luthiers that I knew about, that were actually more like guitar luthiers. Now, those reputable quote-unquote ones were violin makers, and that's pretty much all they did was work on violins and, you know, cellos and violas and things like that. Violin family instruments. They didn't work on guitars and things. They were really cliquish, very cliquish, and perpetuate the myths. Oh my gosh. And that's why I know how that stuff goes when you go to those classically trained violin schools. You get, I mean, it's just like you could put a block and everything in that block is what they know. And they don't know nothing outside that block. They fill that block completely full of the stuff they teach in that school. And if it's outside that block, it ain't right. That's the way they are. They don't have any give, take, or that's just it. And they don't use their head for anything more than a hat rack, in my opinion. They know what they know, and that's all they know, and they don't care about anything else. And whatever else you say is wrong, you know. And that's just the way they are. And that ain't never going to change. I'm going to tell you right now, that ain't never going to change because I've been there, seen it, and I know what I'm talking about. So no, I didn't go to school, but I could tell. I could tell I was dealing with that from the very first day. I could tell I was dealing with that. So then I did go out and branch out and start going to these other people that built guitars and, you know, everything else. And I went around to different shops and learned little tips and tricks at different places. But then I just developed my own thing over time. And I really did stay to myself. Wasn't like, you know, that's mostly just because I'm a loner. I mean, it wasn't for any reason. It was just because I'm a loner. I just stuck to myself. I didn't share. I didn't try to, you know, learn or network or anything like that. I just did what I did. Just the way it worked out. Let's see. Bob says, I own 2 Martins, both play fine. I visited the factory in Nazareth, was very impressed. Greetings from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yeah, there's no reason Martins can't play just fine, but I would say, especially in bluegrass, people think that they have to be like pressing down barbed wire, and they don't. Not at all. Bill Webb, I was filing a nut slot recently and heard it drop suddenly to the bottom. Yep, I know what that is. You guessed it. String buzz, really bad. Well, he fixed it with super glue and filing dust, and but see, that's probably what you filed through. That's what I'm going to say, because I'll be filing and all of a sudden it'll just drop. That's usually because somebody else had put some kind of filler in there, and that filler pops out, or it comes out all in one bunch. That's generally when it drops. But I typically don't use filler. I mean, I'm not saying I've never done it. I'm just saying 99.9% of the time I don't use any kind of filler. If I get too low, I'll either do one of two things. If we're talking a whisper, then I'll just recrown the frets a little bit, re-level and recrown the frets, and it'll go away. If we're just talking a whisper of a buzz. If it's a huge buzz, I just make a new nut. That's just the way I roll. That's just the way I did it. Yeah, he says, I know you don't like to do that, but I did it. Yeah, and it depends on the situation. I mean, if you're dealing with somebody who can't afford to do it the right way and spend the time and the money, if it's a cheap instrument, there's a lot of variables. But if it's a high-end instrument like this instrument here, and I hit a significant buzz, then I do whatever it took to fix that significant buzz. If it meant making a new nut, which I hate to do, don't get me wrong. I don't like to make a new nut. That's one of the last options I will take. But if I have to do it, I will do it. Ronald Todd, I live near Martin Guitar and have toured many times. Once toured with Chris Martin, and believe me, Martin doesn't make a bad guitar. How it sounds is another matter. Yeah, right. Yeah, they make good guitars. There's no question. And, well, I mean, I'm not trying to single them out. There's lots of companies make good guitars. This Larrivee is a fine guitar. And there's lots of others. Taylor makes good guitars. Lots of companies make good guitars. Paul Lanier, took me and my son 45 hours, but we made a titanium saddle. Woo-wee! Sounds super, but only one will be made. Yeah, for my money, though, I don't mean to knock your thing here, but I don't like metal saddles. I've heard them in brass. I've heard them in aluminum. I don't know. For sure, those two things. And they just are too harsh for my taste. I like the bone or the antler sound. It seems to blend more naturally with the instrument. For me, you can tell instantly the difference. And yeah, while it does sound crisp and while it does have a uniquely different sound, it's not the sound I'm going for. So that's why I don't do that. But yeah, titanium would be really hard to work with. That would not be easy. That would be tough. Jeff Klein, so have you ever messed up someone's guitar so bad you had to replace it? No, not really. The very worst case thing I can remember, and it happened about, 5-6 years ago. It was a cello that came in the shop. It was a high-end cello, a modern cello, though. It wasn't like an ancient one, 200 or 300 years old. It wasn't like that. It was a modern, within a couple years old cello. But it was a high-end, quality-made cello. Wasn't just student grade. It was a higher grade than that. And they had a big chip out of the finish, and they wanted to know if I could fix it. And I said, well, I think I can fix it. I said, you'll probably be able to tell it a little bit, but I don't think it'll be bad. it just got worse and got worse and got worse. I finally called the company and the people that made it, and they said, no, we can't patch our finishes either. They said, we always have to strip them down and refinish them from scratch. I said, seriously? I said, yep, that's exactly right. They had something in their finish, and I don't know what it was, but of course it got to me, unfortunately. And you can't make nothing match their finishes. I mean, honest to cotton picking, I tried everything. I bet I tried 20 times, different ideas, and every single thing you put in there would do something like I showed you there, where I put the shellac on there lightly and it turned the darn lines dark. That's kind of what it did in their finish, but it just made a nasty looking mess right there. And it looked better before they brought it to me than after I got done fixing it. And they were not happy. And she made me pay for that 7 ways to sundown. I mean, it sucked. That was the only time I can remember that it really went south. And I mean, it ended up being, like it started out with a scar about into your little finger, and ended up being a scar about the size of a quarter by the time I got done. And so it got worse, But it wasn't nothing I could control. I mean, if I could control it, I would. That's why I hate dealing with finish. Finish, I don't care who you are or what you think you know when it comes to instruments, and especially on light finishes. Now, if it's a dark finish, almost any moron can fix a dark finish. But not a light finish. That's a different thing entirely. If you don't believe me, just go ahead and try it. That's all I can tell you. And if you get lucky and you get, I've been lucky and where a couple of them have been, pretty darn good. You can't hardly see it at all. But that's not the norm on a light finish. On a light finish, you're usually up against it and you're usually not going to win. I mean, to the point where you can't see it anyway. So that's the worst thing that probably ever happened, I think. But I've never messed anybody's instrument up that I can remember that I couldn't fix whatever messed up. I mean, there's been little screw-ups here and there, especially like if you got to take them apart. You're always going to break something you didn't plan to break, but that's just part of it. They don't have a zipper. They don't come apart like some romantic idea in your head. You got to break them to get them apart, and that's pretty much the way it is. And you will break extra things when you're taking them apart like that. Theron Corbett, seems to me that any type of repair work starts with diagnosing the problem in the first place. For sure. Yeah, for sure. And Chipwood, haven't tried the 2 hours to watch your video in one setting, so a little, I'll get through it. Dave Tackett, wondered what bill would have been had you been charging for the repairs. Oh gosh, yeah. It would have probably been $800 or $900, probably somewhere in there. $125 an hour, and then I probably would have had $10 for a set of strings, and probably $30 or $40 for that piece of wood, because you got to replace it, that type of thing. Anyway, yeah, it would have been a few bucks. You'd been bumping close to $1,000 for that repair. That was a tough job. It was really tough. Tougher than it looks in the video, honestly. It was a tough repair. Everything about it was tough. Nothing went simple. Just kind of the way stuff like that goes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they just go so easy and you think, golly, I thought this was going to be really hard, and it's just so simple. Other times you think exactly opposite, and it is exactly opposite. Dave Hackett on the Larrivee Guitar. Yeah, on that Larrivee. Bill Webb, how do you feel about the Bridge Doctor device? I know you've talked about them before. I am not a fan really at all. I don't like them. Now, let me rephrase that and explain the details. The details are, if you have a high-end guitar like this Larrivee or a Martin or a high-end Taylor or any good high-end guitar, then you couldn't make me put one of those bridge doctors in it. I mean, you couldn't force me to do it. Now, there's one high-end guitar company that all their guitars come out with those in there, and they hate my guts because I said something in a video about this guitar, and I don't remember which brand it is. I truly don't remember, or I'd tell you. But anyway, it was one of those high-end guitars, and they come out with a bridge doctor in them already. And I think they sound like crap. I mean, you can hear the difference. There's no doubt. They mute the sound. They just kill the sound, in my opinion. And if you can, if you got an ear where you listen to things like that, you can hear the difference like that. It's not something that you have to listen hard for. You'll hear it. Having said that, if you got a $50 guitar or a $100 guitar or a $500 guitar, which might seem like an expensive guitar to some of you, I understand that. But if you're in that class of guitar and your option is to spend 4 hours fixing it the right way or put a bridge doctor in, I'd put a bridge doctor in. There you go. So that's how I feel about it. They do what they say they're going to do. They work. They absolutely work. Bridge doctor itself does what it says it will do. But I don't like what it does to your sound at all. Let's see. And if you go back to the common sense that I tell you about, when you put something in there that stiffens up your top and stiffens, and it's tied to the back end plate, or that end block, it's tied to the end block of your guitar up to the bridge, and it stiffens it all up. Do you think it's going to affect your sound? No, probably not. It can't do anything but affect your sound. Just common sense. Common sense, that's all it is. Moving on down. Let's see. Joey Dano Guitars. Finish sucks to try and repair. Almost easier to do the whole instrument. Yeah, and I have done that in a number of cases where I knew I was in for trouble. Well, I tell you, Chocolate ended up being that way. I did not want to refinish Chocolate because it was a high-end violin, and the last thing you want to do on any high-end instrument is to refinish it. But then in retrospect, I thought, this thing is so screwed up. Who cares? So I just refinished it. I didn't want to, and I wasn't planning to, but I did. And it was for the better. Philip Allender says, we're thinking about staying in your B&B. Yeah, well, feel free to come out and do that. It's booked all the time. There's somebody in it right now. You'd be surprised how often it's booked. It's not booked for the music so much anymore, but it's booked a lot. And we have the apartment here too. The apartment is it's like straight through this wall right behind you here. Then there's a drive-through where between it. It's under the same roof, but it's not physically where you can walk from one room to the other. There's an actual drive-through, and you drive under the roof of the house, and then the apartment's right there. And then the rental retreat is way down here across the valley. So we have 2 units. This one is more of an efficiency apartment. 1 or 2 people is fine in that one. Maybe 2 people with a baby is fine in this one, but that would be it. The other one, you could have 2 small families in there without any trouble at all, because it's a full house. And it's an upstairs and a downstairs. And there's only 1 kitchen, though. So, I mean, like you wouldn't have 2 different families at the same time. But, if it was 2 friendly families that wanted to come out for a weekend together, you could have 1 family downstairs, 1 family upstairs. And, of course, the upstairs is where the kitchen is. So you'd have to commingle for the kitchen part. But anyway, moving on down, let's see. Cup of Cool, 1 bad instrument out of thousands is pretty good record. You always have chocolate. Bill Webb, don't go stay in the Airbnb. Don't do it. That way I can go stay when I want to. You nearly have to book it a year in advance. I don't know about that. I don't know that it's booked that far ahead, but there's a lot of bookings. It's a book more than I would have ever guessed. And quite honestly, it's a lot of work for Sue because she goes up and cleans it. Like I said, for me, I would hire somebody to clean it. She doesn't seem to want to do that. But anyway, it's a lot of work for her. But other than that, besides that aspect, it brings in a lot more money renting it as an Airbnb than it would if you just rented it monthly to somebody to live there. Plus, when you rent it monthly, you don't know who you're going to get and what you're going to get, and they're going to be here for a long time, and they generally destroy everything. So this is way better. It's way better. So if you have rental property, you might want to consider switching it over to an Airbnb and getting it on the Airbnb site, and you'd be surprised. It will bring in more revenue that way, and it's a lot of work. It's not simple, and you do really have to keep it up for an Airbnb type thing. You don't want to let it, because the reviews are everything. The people that come here, I don't know that every single person's given us a 5-star rating, but I think they have. So, you want it like that. If you get 2 and 3 star ratings, you aren't going to get the business. Moving on down. C90 guy, Jerry, you forgot about your band member's double bass tail block that failed? Well, I'm not saying I didn't have anything that failed once or twice, but I've been able to fix it, and like that situation, I fixed that, and it's not been a problem ever since. So I'm talking about something that I just couldn't fix. Joey Dano Guitars, how is the old farmhouse going? It's just sitting there. I haven't even looked at it. Like I said, Sue, she gets her ideas in her head, and then she goes and does the in things before the first things. And she went and filled the thing full of antiques. It's like, now how am I going to work on it? But stuff is what it is. So that's, it's like, it would be like if you went to the junkyard and you found a complete junk frame, and you were going to build a race car or something, or restore it and make it an antique restoration. And the first thing you go out and buy would be like your upholstery, and you got all this upholstery laying around. What's that going to do for you? You need to fix. You got to get a body. You got to get an engine. It wouldn't make any sense to do the finish details first. You do those at the end, and that's kind of what's happened here with that old house. It needs a lot of work, and I just don't know if I'm up to it at this point. I would like to get it done though. It will be a cool B&B or Airbnb if we ever get that far, but odds are we might not get that far. It's after 9 o'clock this morning here, and I'm going to let that be it. 165 viewers. Go out there and tell your friends about this auction. It's for a very good cause, and I would like to raise a whole bunch of money for these people. If you are in support of the cause and you want to send me, again, you've probably done this and you wonder why I haven't gotten back to you, because I just haven't checked the email. But if you'll send me an email and say that you would like to donate X amount of money to the Six String Heroes, I will send you a return invoice, and the return invoice will have the tax ID number on it that you can use for your taxes for a charitable contribution, and then you can then pay the invoice with a credit card or with PayPal, either one. It'll be a PayPal invoice that I send you. If you've been waiting on that and you're going, well, how come you haven't sent it yet? It's just because I've just been swamped. But I'm going to work on taxes today, so I don't even know if I'll get to all those things today. But in the next few days, day or two, I will get to all that. It's just not easy being me. You just still don't believe me, but it's not. And I'm a genius on top of it. So we'll see you guys tomorrow with something else.